All right, today we're going to dive into a computer science puzzle that, honestly, it messes with a core assumption we all have about efficiency. It's all about how you organize information, but you'll see that the secret to being the best isn't what you'd think. Let's get right into it. Okay, so take a look at these two binary search trees. The one on the left, it's the model student, right? It's balanced, it's symmetrical, it's exactly what you'd probably draw in a textbook. But the one on the right, well, it's kind of the weird cousin. It's lanky, it's totally unbalanced, and at first glance, it just looks like a mess. So here's the big question for you. If you had to bet, which of these two trees is going to give you the fastest search time, on average? Is it the neat, tidy, balanced one? Or is it the lanky, kind of awkward-looking one? And here's the twist. The faster, more optimal tree is the lopsided one on the right. Yeah, I know, it feels completely wrong. It's totally counterintuitive, but the reason why is going to change how you think about efficiency. So that brings us to our first section. We're going to unravel this mystery. Think of it as a tale of two trees, and it's a story that will really challenge what you thought made a data structure good. See, the crucial point here, the whole secret, is that we've been focusing on the wrong thing. The goal isn't just to build the shortest, most balanced tree. It's to get the lowest possible expected search cost. And that one little shift in perspective, it changes the entire game. So what even is expected search cost? Well, it's a way of measuring performance that admits a really simple truth. Not all data gets used equally. I mean, think about the apps on your phone. You've got a couple you open dozens of times a day, and then others you might tap on, once a month? Expected search cost just takes that frequency into account. So let's break down how this gets calculated. For every single item, or node, in the tree, you look at two things. First, how often are we actually looking for it? That's its probability. And second, how deep is it in the tree? A super popular item that's buried way down deep is going to have a huge cost. It's like having to dig through a messy drawer for your car keys every single morning. But an item you barely ever need, even if it's deep, it's not going to cost you as much in the long run. All right, let's look at our first tree, the perfectly balanced one. When we run the numbers, we do that math for every single node and add it all up. We get a total expected search cost of 2.80. And now, for our unbalanced hero. Its total expected search cost, 2.75. Now, I know it's a small difference, but in the world of computer science, those small differences are everything. That's the gap between a snappy, responsive app and one that makes you want to throw your phone. So this tree, this messy-looking one, is mathematically, provably better. Okay, so how in the world do we find this amazing optimal tree without building every single possible version and testing it? That sounds like a nightmare. Well, the answer is a really powerful technique called dynamic programming, and it has a very clever trick up its sleeve. The whole secret sauce is this property called optimal substructure, and it's actually a pretty simple idea. It just means that the best solution to a big problem is built out of the best solutions to its smaller parts. So if you want the best possible tree, its left branch and its right branch have to also be the best possible subtrees you can make. This boils everything down to one fundamental question the algorithm has to ask itself over and over. For any group of keys, say K1 through K5, which single one of them should be sitting at the very top as the root of that part of the tree? And the algorithm is super methodical about this. It's kind of like trying on every single hat in a store to see which one fits best. It puts each key at the root, one by one, calculates what the total cost would be, and then moves on to the next one, always looking for the absolute lowest cost. But here is the magic. This is the amazing part about dynamic programming. When the algorithm is testing, let's say K3 as the root, it needs to know the best possible cost for the subtree on the left and the one on the right. But it doesn't have to figure that out again. It has already solved those smaller problems and saved the answers. It just looks them up. No rework needed. And that lookup ability is the key to the whole thing. The algorithm works from the bottom up. It's just like building with Legos. You solve the really simple, tiny problems first, and then you use those solutions as the building blocks for the bigger, more complex problems. So you can see how this builds up, right? First, it finds the best tree for just a single key. That's pretty easy. Then it uses those results to find the best arrangement for all possible pairs of keys. Then triplets, then quadruplets. It just keeps going.
systematically building on what it's already figured out until, bam, it has the final answer for the whole set. So where is it keeping all this useful information? Nothing fancy. It just stores them in a couple of simple tables. One table keeps track of the best possible cost for every subproblem, and another one remembers which key it picked as the root to get that amazing cost. And this is what it all builds up to. Now, this might just look like a bunch of numbers, but it's not. It's actually a complete blueprint for our optimal tree. The table on the left tells us the best possible cost for any group of keys, with our final answer, 2.75, right there at the top. And the table on the right, that's our instruction manual. It tells us exactly how to build the tree step by step.
So, after all that, what's the big lesson here? What's the takeaway? Because this algorithm, it's about so much more than just data structures. It's about a really fundamental principle of good design and true efficiency.
So what have we learned? Well, first off, optimal totally depends on how something is going to be used. A perfectly balanced tree isn't always the best. In fact, a visually unbalanced tree can be way more efficient if it puts the most frequently used stuff right up near the top. And finally, this is just a perfect showcase for the power of dynamic programming when you have problems with that optimal substructure property.
If you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Optimal isn't about some abstract ideal of perfect balance. It's about purposeful design that is perfectly tailored to the job it actually needs to do. And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. This principle, it applies way beyond computer science, right? So where else in our lives, in our work, in the world around us, does the perfect structure lose out to a purposefully designed one? Something to think about.